Happy 2025 and welcome back to the Dual Comm podcast. Epos, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to the listeners. How was your holiday and how is the year's starting so far?
It was quite the experience. My kiddo got super sick and missed the whole last week of school before Christmas, so he had a 3-week Christmas break.
Nice.
And we were all sick for the holiday, which wasn't great. But I've done basically zero work and a lot of gaming in places that I didn't expect, and it's been kind of nice.
Oh,
I'm stoked to be back here, but yeah.
Those breaks are kind of the best. This is the only time of the year I feel like YouTubers slow down a little bit for, and it was great. I didn't upload for 2 weeks. I didn't sit at a desk for 2 weeks, which was really nice.
Dude.
I'm pretty tired. You know how holidays go, family and friends and stuff. It just, things happened and it wasn't very recharging, but it also was very mentally recharging, like physically tired, mentally,
That's
a lot
about how
better.
I feel.
Yeah. Well,
Like, I'm stoked for my kiddo to go back to school so I can, breathe again and figure out what I need to do for me. But also in terms of, like you said, obsessing about YouTube and everything. It's like, everything is nice and fresh again.
routines are so nice. It is really enjoyable to get back in the loop, to do work, and to, have sort of the expected come back into the mix. Holidays are great, but I always enjoy it's like, okay, well, as long as nothing's on fire, it's kind of nice getting back into the routine.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive right in. I want to talk real quick about what is on the show today. I have not done that in the previous episodes. I'll try to do that moving forward. We want to talk about the year ahead in gaming, all of the most anticipated titles, the trends to watch, what we're excited for, and the games that are probably coming out this next year. Then I want to talk about a purchase I made right before the holidays started. I picked up a PlayStation 5 EPOS, and I am obsessed. I've got a lot of thoughts about going back to console, and I want to talk to you about it, pick your brain on it, and maybe revisit our conversation about some of those PlayStation blockbusters. Possibly I was a little wrong. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And then I want to really dive into the tech side of things. Mark Cerny over the holidays released a really cool deep dive into how the PlayStation 5 Pro works, but in it was some pretty detailed talks about technology for games that impact all of gaming on any platform, and it's definitely over my head, so I need some help making sense of all of it, this rendering tech, and who better than the stream professor himself to shed some light. And also, time codes for all segments are down in the description, even if you're on one of the podcast players like Apple or Spotify. I make sure to put those time codes in the description there. I don't think they're clickable depending on the platform, but at least you'll have an idea. If there's a topic of interest, you can jump around too. Why don't we start with the year ahead in gaming epos? I've put together a spreadsheet. I will link this in the show notes for the chat. I thought this was an interesting idea. Put together a spreadsheet of the upcoming games that have release dates that we know are releasing most likely this next year. When they come out, are you interested in it? You'll see some drop downs, and it's basically saying, are you going to play the game? Yes, no, or maybe. And I encourage the audience as well to kind of go through this too, because it's a lot easier when you look at things laid out this way to see, 2025 could be quite a year. So why don't we start with the games that don't have release dates, which is most of the biggest ones. And I'm going to just throw out the biggest release probably of this next year, without a doubt, is going to be Grand Theft Auto 6. Are you interested? Are you going to play it? What are your thoughts? Because no doubt from a cultural perspective, 2025, this is going to be the story. As long as it doesn't get delayed, I have to imagine this will be the biggest release of the last, forever.
I may try it. I am that weird gamer under a rock. I've never truly played a Grand Theft Auto game, and I don't get it. I know it's the biggest franchise ever, and some of the speculation about pre-order sales for 6 are getting out of control with there was one article quoting an estimate of $1 billion in pre-order revenue, which just doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's real, but I'm sure at some point I'll give it a try. And the sad part is I own all of them, at least most of them. I have the PS3 or the PS2 set of them. I have 5 on PC just because it's a good benchmarking title. I've had 4, but I've never managed to get into it.
Yeah, I am similar.
I gotta be the weirdo.
No, it's not that weird. It's so I wasn't allowed to play them growing up. Like my parents were like, no
same.
way, this is not what you're going to do. So I never got the experience of like what my roommate in college did, where he played San Andreas on PlayStation 2 at its heyday, loved that game. And then he played through GTA 4 on the 360. So my first Grand Theft Auto experience was in college playing GTA 4, his copy on 360. I loved Grand Theft Auto 4. I thought the story was really well written. It had some great just commentary about cultural, societal things, and it was pretty well put together. And I was kind of shocked. You know, my whole perception of the series was sort of shaped by like 2000s era media coverage of it. You know, how the news would always talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and
Grand Theft Auto game where you ride on your bike and do gang stuff, and my mom was just like, nope, and I was like, that's fine, I'm gonna go play Pokemon and Crash.
Yes, yeah, we were Spyro kids, and I'm okay with that, right? Yes. I really enjoyed Grand Theft Auto 4, and then I got GTA 5 when it came out and didn't really like it. Honestly, I'm not that interested in GTA 6. The setting, the whole thing, it's just not really my vibe or my jam. I love the sandbox. It's really fun to drive, to get in a helicopter and fly around. I'm interested in GTA 6 from the tech perspective because Cyberpunk really pushed things forward in my mind in terms of like an open world and immersive experience, and certain parts of Phantom Liberty were insane. And so if GTA 6 can push it forward, I'm curious from the tech perspective, but honestly, I'm not that interested in the game itself. Red Dead Redemption 2, I put like 12 hours into this last year. I get it. It's incredible, but it's not for me right now. So who knows? But I imagine most people next year, this is going to be one of their genre defining games. Are we going to have a development cycle for like a Grand Theft Auto 7 that is literally 20 years? It feels like we just get longer and longer and longer for these projects. Like, is there going to be a 20-year game?
Everyone who played, worked on, or even heard about the first 3-4 games will be dead by time 7 comes out.
We'll be in the retirement home.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on then to another game. I already know you're going to play this one, and I'm excited too. Doom,
yes.
The Dark Ages. We don't have a release date for this one either. We know it's coming this next year. We've got just medieval melee-looking themes and weapons and dragons and the Doomslayer. This looks to be probably the best single-player FPS of next year, hands down. Yes. I mean, Metroid Prime 4,
1,000,000%.
Probably going to be great, but I mean, Doom has not missed yet.
No, I will put the Dark Ages reveal at, I think it was E3. I think it was E3.
The Summer Game Fest thing or whatever. Was it the Xbox Showcase? Probably the Xbox Showcase.
The Xbox Showcase, yes. I will put that reveal because I streamed it with my community manager and clipped my reaction and stuff. Like, that is the most hyped I have been on a game release probably ever. The only thing I can think close to it is when I think it was Phil Spencer came out in the Crash Bandicoot shirt and they eventually announced that the Crash remasters were happening. Like, that one I was cheering for, but like the Doom reveal for a new game is the most hyped and over the top I have been for a new game reveal possibly ever. It looks so incredible. It looks like something a 14-year-old me would have dreamed about. And yes, like you said, Doom has not missed. I have over time come to agree with some of the sentiments that Eternal, it lacks some of the replayability that Doom 2016 had just because it got so complicated. Like, I find it hard to get back in sometimes. But like, they were both such incredible experiences with so much of the scale we talk about being missing from modern FPS like campaigns. Like, this just looks like it's going to be mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I can't imagine it misses the mark. And I do agree with also what you had said. Eternal, it didn't have the same cohesive epic adventure that like 2016 did start to finish, but I just still think the vibes in Eternal were crazy.
And that boss fight was just,
yeah. I beat that in a single weekend. That was like 2019, I think. And I needed a total like detox from games. It was the most intense like FPS experience ever. Speaking
it was
of,
so funny. It came out the same weekend as Animal Crossing New Horizons. And so my wife and I, my wife was about like we were pregnant, we were expecting our kiddo like the next month, and my wife and I were sitting there side by side, me at the computer and her at the TV, and she's sitting there playing Animal Crossing, and I'm just boom, and Doom, and it's just such a funny like
literally the same day. That's what all the memes were for.
Yep.
Why do I not? Okay, I saw a meme that was really sad. Thinking back to 5 years ago and realizing it's not 2015. 5 years ago was 2020, dude.
Yeah, that doesn't make any remote sense in my brain.
I'm stuck thinking that it is still like 2020 is this weird time moment.
Yeah, like time stopped.
It did. And I don't think the world has even come close to going back to normal. Anytime I'm at the grocery store, it's like Mad Max. There's like no manners anymore. People just plow into each other. It's like, I don't know if everybody is experiencing this everywhere, but I feel like everybody's really unpleasant with each other. And like that hasn't gone back to normal. There's just this sort of edge that I don't think was there previously.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I come from, and I guess you do a little bit too, but from the generation that always refers to like, the 90s were 10 years ago, the 70s were 30 years ago and stuff. I think 2020 is that next time, like you said, time like gap.
Yeah.
Where everything just stops at that point. So 2020 will always be the current year for the next 10 years or something.
Yeah, for real. That's a great way to put it. Well, speaking of funky vibes, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is coming out this year from Hideo
Can't get over that
Kojima.
title.
On the Beach.
It's the beach episode.
That's right. I beat the original. I like Kojima. I liked a lot about Death Stranding 1. I didn't like a lot of other things. It's a 50-hour game. It didn't need to be 50 hours in my opinion, but I also still kind of crave and miss that gameplay. So yeah, I'm probably along for the ride. If it's another 50-hour thing, I would be thrilled if it was 25 hours and your extra 50, 60 came from optional gameplay. But boy, the spookiest, weirdest world he's ever built. And I like all the actors and stuff in it. So it'll be a Kojima experience, but I'm assuming this is a no for you.
I still have to play the first one. I got like the collector's edition and everything, but I just have never sat down and play it. The gameplay I feel like I got to be in the perfect headspace from what I've seen of it. I've absorbed very little spoilers about it, honestly, but like from what I've seen of it, I feel like I really got to be into it to start it. And so I will play it at some point, but not anytime soon because I still got to play through the first one.
I guarantee you could watch any cutscene from that game and not have it spoiled. It is so hard to understand. I have watched so many story explained videos, and even the people who like obsess over it, it is buck wild, even for Kojima standards.
Yeah.
Oh, coming out next year, Elden Ring, Night Rain.
Yes.
This is a maybe for me, only because I'm probably going to wait to see what the reception is and like how the sales go. This is a non-traditional From Software Souls-like style game. It is a 3-person boss rush roguelite survival experience co-op.
All buzzwords that make me very happy.
They make me nervous. I hear all those and I'm like, oh my gosh, don't screw it up.
No, this speaks to something that I've been saying in these podcasts and other videos and stuff for a long time. And that is when you get a game that is so good and resonates so well, and the engine is just so much fun to play in, just make more of it. It doesn't even need to be just a direct sequel. Just give us more things to do. And that is what From Software is potentially doing here, is they took Elden Ring, they did an expansion, which was already great. And then, which by the way, I just got my PS5 copy in of the base game. I am so stoked to like sit down and really grind it. We're going to talk more about the PS5 later, but I'm super stoked. But they took that and they're like, okay, let's have another experience in this world, in this engine that we don't need to spend 5 years developing new tech for. We just take what people like and put a twist on it. Like, keep doing that with games. Don't just keep making whole new frameworks to make a game from. Just make more of it.
All right, I just changed it to yes. You got me. yeah, it's true. This reminds me of going to like Sam Goody, and this is the expansion pack, right? Where they didn't have to rebuild a whole new engine or universe. I know I've seen like some of the Nameless King is in there, I think. And so there's Dark Souls bosses that are returning. It's probably going to be fun, you know? And I do like what you said. Elden Ring 2, I'm not even ready for, right?
Right.
I can't comprehend. I'm kind of burned out a little bit. Elden Ring this last year into Shadow of the Erdtree, I loved it. Don't get me wrong, but even trying the Demon Souls PS5 remaster, I was like, I'm not ready to do this again. I need a little bit of a breather. And you and I will definitely play this. It sounds like they only have 3-player. Doesn't sound like there's 2-player yet, but it's so early. Maybe all that stuff changes. Who knows? But where are we dropping? Limgrave? All right, next one, Fable. Fable is supposedly coming out this year, and this one has been in development since I was in diapers, so yeah. Hopefully it's good, right?
I hope so. Honestly, I want to get to them this year. I have not played most of the sequels. I was a huge original Fable and the Lost Chapters fan, and this is potentially going back to that. It's got that same whimsy and whatever, so we'll see.
Yeah, how long have they been working on this?
It's another 15-year dev cycle.
I loved the original.
Because Fable 3 I was in like high school, I think.
Yeah, music is super good. Ghosts of Yotai.
Yeah, 2010.
Ghost
so
of
it's
Yotai.
15 years. I was right.
For real?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So the Ghost of Tsushima sequel, Ghost of Yotai, is coming out this next year.
Yes.
I'm a definite maybe. I tried Ghost of Tsushima, and I enjoyed it, and I think graphically it's great. I was a little burnt out, and still am, on open world style games, but everyone I talk to who's beaten it loves it, says you should go play it. And it's always such a graphical powerhouse and a spectacle to look at. So I have to imagine this one is on the maybe list. For me, it just might be down the road because these sort of epically long, you can put 35, 40 hours into it kind of games. You got to prioritize because you can't do all of them.
Yeah, I will get it to walk around the world and to experience it and to support it because the first one looked incredible too, and I've only touched it a little bit, but I have no aspirations that I will beat the game.
Yeah. Metroid Prime 4, Beyond. This is a hard yes for me. I'm super looking forward to the game, but I will not buy or play it until Switch 2 because I have a feeling this is going to be their cross-generation title that they use just like Breath of the Wild between Wii U and Switch, and it will probably run remarkably better on Switch 2. I will not fall for the trap. I want the ultra epic enhanced edition or whatever that is on Switch 2.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know that I've gotten enough time out of my Switch yet to justify a Switch 2, so I might be getting it on here because I got to get a lot more hours in first, especially because we have 2 Switches. We have our base Switch I got at some point in like 2018 or 2019 for Pokemon, and then I got an OLED thing, and that would convince me to play it handheld more, and it did, but I still haven't put enough hours in to justify it.
At least it's going to be backwards compatible. And so when you see the specs, you can make the call. It just depends on how Nintendo is going to handle. Will it play games with enhancement patches? Are the big titles like Tears of the Kingdom going to perform better on Switch 2? The Switch 2 is my number one thing I'm looking forward to this next year. It's why I'm absolutely trying to devour and finish the 3 or 4 games on my plate right now, because I have a strong feeling and a hope it's a Q1 release. I've already been saving for it the last year. So this will be one of the first console experiences in forever where I'm like day one at a GameStop picking the thing up, because the Switch 1, I loved every single year with that thing, and I got my money's worth and then some. I'm not a Steam Deck owner, so I can't speak to that. I know the Steam Deck players and the PC handheld players, they love it to death.
Yeah.
I'm paying the Nintendo tax because games like Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those games just truly blew me away. But Splitgate 2, dude, it's coming out this next year. I think we're both going to play this one, right?
Yeah, we're going to play it. I'm still in my cautious territory, and I don't know how much I'll stick with it, especially because I've been really phasing out competitive multiplayer games from my plate in general. But we definitely got to give it its fair shake once it's out.
Yes. Yeah, we both talked about this on videos on our channel. I'm not that interested in providing too much feedback on it. Here, I really believe developers, especially on a multiplayer game, need to create the vision that they think is fun, that they have confidence in. When it's just a continual like feedback survey from the community, well, what do you want? We should change everything. We made the game that you want. Like, a crowdsourced game sucks. Seriously. Like, most people are not developers. Most people don't know what they want. There is importance in listening to your scene, your community. All that matters deeply. But the big core pillars of your gameplay, you got to choose and be confident behind. And for me, so far, Splitgate 2 feels like a mix mash of too many different ideas from other FPS games. I loved the original. It's my most played FPS game in the last like 5 years. That game rocks, like multiplayer wise, I mean.
Yeah.
And Splitgate 2 moves in a different direction. It does. Like, thematically, there's plenty of things that are similar, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, a lot of the arena stuff, it just is different. So I'll be there. I'll check it out. It's free, so there's no risk, and I'm sure the game will evolve and change, and I hope it's successful.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what I hope for. I don't want a studio to not be successful. I just hope we get more games that we like in the FPS space again one day.
Yeah,
and
someday,
not have them
dude.
shut down every 6 months.
Subnautica 2 is coming out this next year. I'd never played the original. I've had plenty of people say you gotta try it. It's like spooky Minecraft underwater, right?
It's such a funny description, but that is what I've heard too.
Yeah, in my head, that's all I think, because I remember people being scared. There's like jump scares from fishes and sharks and stuff, and then you have to, like, in an underwater world, like rebuild your ship and get out of there, right?
Yeah.
It's a maybe for me.
Yeah, same. I didn't play the first one, but it's one of those games like FTL that everyone just constantly brings up as you got to play. So at some point, I got to try it.
You can learn all new crafting recipes for another game you'll play for a month and never touch again.
Yeah.
The Outer Worlds 2 is coming out next year. This is a maybe for me. I played the original. I really liked it. It's Obsidian, I believe, which was the team for New Vegas, and I thought the original was great. It wasn't too much to handle. It wasn't crazy amazing, but it had good humor, fun writing. So a Steam sale game down the road for me, but definitely not at release.
I'm surprised it's coming out this year because Obsidian also has Avowed on the list coming out early this year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play both of them. I haven't played Outer Worlds 1 yet, so I definitely want to play it first. My wife has at least played the character creator a few times. And, as a huge Mass Effect fan, has been very interested in it. So we may do some playthrough of that before I touch 2, but I'm interested in both that and Avowed just because they seem to make great stuff. And so I'm excited.
It's kind of got space western vibes, which I'm into.
Yeah.
Firefly has crafted me into someone who will always appreciate cowboys in space. So if it gets really good reviews, I might be on board. One game I know I'm on board from the moment it drops over on PlayStation is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This game just came out. Great reviews. Everybody's stoked on it. And it's on PC and Xbox. I'm waiting for the PlayStation release, which is rumored to be this spring, because I want to sit back on a couch and play this thing. I don't want to be at my desk playing it on the PC. It seems like they nailed it. I mean, the vibes seem spot on. Troy Baker apparently is incredible as Harrison Ford, like imitating Harrison's voice. So, are you interested in this one?
On the Game Awards being like, I wouldn't have let him do it if I knew he'd do such a good job.
Yeah, for real. That was a fun shock seeing Harrison.
Yes.
I know everybody is like memeing because he like couldn't read part of the prompter or whatever, but love that
There's
dude,
always
man.
someone, every year there's someone who complains about the prompter. So frankly, it's funny that it's him. Like,
yes.
a seasoned actor that has been around the block and he's just like, I can't read this.
Yeah. Maybe the joke was going to bomb too hard. He's like, nah, no way, dog.
Yeah. He's like, this is bad. But yeah, I'm super stoked for it. It is a game that I have heard virtually no complaint about, which is so rare. So I am super stoked. Again, it's going to be one I sit on the couch and sit back and actually just play. So I am excited to pick it up. I don't know which platform I'm getting it on just yet, but it's still on my list at some point once I've cleared out some of my temporary backlog.
Yeah, I just looked
short-term backlog.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, go for it.
Oh, I just meant my short-term backlog, not the big backlog, but the middle log.
The middle log. I like that. It's the middle log. I looked up the how long to beat. I won't share in case nobody wants spoilers, but it definitely falls in the range where I'm excited for. It's like, yep,
yes, okay.
those are. I started Final Fantasy VII Rebirth over the Christmas break, and I think it's a lot. Again, I don't want to spoil it and just throw it out there if somebody wants to go in blind and play it. But it's the time length of like, cool, that'll take me a year.
That's what I'm worried about. I've had the game for years at this point because I got it back on the PS4 for my PS4 Pro.
Oh, you're talking about remake. I was talking about Rebirth.
Oh yeah. You're right.
But remake
still, like,
is not super short either.
Yeah. I got to play through both of them, so like it's double the hours.
Remake is so good. Anyway, I won't go down. That's a whole other discussion. The last title, big release for this next year that doesn't have a specific release date is Gears of War E-Day. And I'm changing mine from a maybe to a yes. Boy, it has been a long time since we got a new Gears game. Gears 5 feels like 100 years ago. When was that? 2019? What?
Yeah.
Oh,
what
gosh.
Do you mean? That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, for real. The trailer got me with E-Day. I think I was almost emotional watching that cinematic reveal. Have you seen it? I think it was also at the very end of the Summer Game Fest.
Yes, it was. That was one where I absolutely did not expect it, and I was just like, heck yes. I have not played 4 or 5. It's been on my list. I just haven't gotten to it, but anything involving the original characters in trilogy, I will. Actually, that's not true. I think I played a little bit of 4. But like a prequel, I am 100% down for.
Yay. Yeah, me too.
Mad World, Marcus, Dom, let's go.
Please be good. Please be good. M. Vito, one of our good buddies, he has been playing the multiplayer still, I think, for Gears 5 and still enjoys it. All right, those are the games that don't have the release dates, but we do have release dates going out through March for a bunch of other games. I've picked the ones that I think are of interest, because obviously if you pull the whole list, there's so many indies and things that it'd be too long to cover. So coming in just a couple of weeks here on January 16th for the Switch is Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. I see you marked this as a yes. Tell me why you're excited for this fantastic platformer that originated on the Wii, then got a Nintendo 3DS version, and is now coming to the Switch.
What a history. I am not a longtime player of most like Nintendo franchise games other than Pokemon, but Donkey Kong is one that ever since I got my uncle's Super Nintendo back in the day and had Donkey Kong Country, I have just always been stoked on. It is ridiculous, a lot of fun. The levels just reek of polish, and it's my kind of platformer that's generally easy enough that I can have fun with while still sticking with it. And it was the remasters of sorts they did on the Wii and Wii U were already great, and so just picking it up again on the Switch, because frankly I hate to be that person, but I do not want to figure out how to set up my Wii U again. There are games that stuck on there that frankly I have no desire to keep my tablet charged and get everything hooked up and find a way to integrate that into my system with the light bar and everything. Like I I don't want to set up my Wii U. I was a champion of that console, and I have no desire to make it work again. And so I will happily just of all things I complain about Nintendo prices and whatever, I will happily just pick up any game that was on the Wii U again on the Switch just to not have to set it up.
Yeah. It's a great game. I played it on the original, like on the Wii. This is Retro Studios, who's the folks behind Metroid Prime 4. And then I have the version on the 3DS, which is actually a pretty great little port. That's the only reason I'm not going to go out and spend the money. Tropical Freeze is phenomenal. It's also on the Switch, little HD port from Wii U. And everything you said, it's absolutely fantastic. So enjoy it, and I'm interested to know what you think about it. On the 14th of February, jumping to the next month, Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is a no for me purely because I just am not an Assassin's Creed player.
I have been interested in so many Assassin's Creed games, and I've picked up like Odyssey and Valhalla and stuff, and like this one appeals to me in that regard. Like, it looks like a lot of fun, but I just, like you said, I do not have the time. My wife and I, as I mentioned in a past episode, tried starting the franchise over at 1, and that was a mistake. And I just, maybe when I'm in the retirement home, I'll go back and pick up my older Assassin's Creed games and I'll make it through. But like, I know you don't need to play them in order, but even just to jump in, like, they are massive open games, and that's what Ubisoft does well. If you like that formula, if you don't like that formula, the game doesn't have a whole lot for you.
Yeah, I'm not on board unless people are like, this is the most amazing thing ever. Avowed comes out just 4 days later, though, on February 18th. I truly know nothing about this game other than it's Obsidian who's making it, right?
Yes.
And you're interested
in the Pillars of Eternity universe, which may mean nothing to most people, but that's fine.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Just to continue expanding that lore. Just another fantasy RPG. It's a Skyrim-like, basically, as I would call it, since we're just making genres out of individual games these days. It's a Skyrim-like. And I've been wanting more Skyrim in my life, so I'm going to play Skyrim 3.
Well, you just sold me on it more, so it's moving to the maybe category. Skyrim-like is a good descriptor.
Yeah, like, I mean, even, like, you just look at the first ounce of gameplay, and you got, like, an axe up and magic in the other hand, and it's Skyrim. Like, I think it'll be good. It's been the center of a lot of controversy, and I don't want to care about any of that. It looks like it's going to be fun. It looks like it's going to be a little ridiculous, and that's what I want from a game.
It's so much nicer. I truly have been in the dark. I'm not looking at very much. So when you say controversy, it's really nice to be like, I have literally no clue at all.
Yep.
And I want to just stay kind of in the dark. And when I say, for a lot of these games I'm marking as maybes and yeses, like this could be in a year or two. This is like a general, do I have interest at any point in my life? Because
this is not, we will beat in 2025.
Yeah. 10 days later, the giant time suck of Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out. And I will probably be there on day one, depending on backlog, life, all this stuff. Monster Hunter World and Rise, I sunk so much time into. I've been playing Monster Hunter since the PSP days. But it's also, here's the good thing about the Monster Hunter series. It's a 30-minute experience. If you want to go in, run a hunt or two, get some, pieces that you need to build the armor or the weapons that you want, you can put 15 to 30 minutes in a day. And you really don't have to keep up with anyone. You can play it at your own pace. Capcom is insane and always adds live service amounts of new free content into the game continually for free. So you can pick it up at any point. Like if you pick up Monster Hunter World right now, you're going to be overwhelmed. There's like probably 200 events with all these crazy collaborations and tie-ins and crossovers from different series. But as it stands now, I am very much looking forward to it on day one. And I think it's going to be absolutely incredible.
It just changed it to a yes to me, that 30-minute cycle. That is what I love about games like Helldivers and games like this. And like, that's what I liked about Warframe, was jumping in and just doing a couple missions. That's what I like about Astrobot, just getting a couple levels knocked out. I have quite a few Monster Hunter games, but I've always had that kind of, especially with the modern ones, that overwhelm of like, there is so much. What the heck do I do?
Yes. Yeah.
I do remember we were just talking about the Wii U. I actually played a few hours of, I think it was just Monster Hunter 3 or something that they put on the Wii U, and had a lot of fun with it. But it was so, because it's set up as like a run-based game, you have your like hub village or whatever.
Yeah.
And I felt kind of lost because I was expecting it to be more of like a standard RPG. I was kind of lost as to like how to progress.
Yep.
And so this makes me want to, at least, I think I have Rise, I at least have World. Like, it makes me want to pick it back up and give it another go.
This would be the one to do so. So Monster Hunter World, I think Wilds is the same team that does it. They have like two teams who work on it. Rise is more like that handheld style that is similar to the older DS games, basically.
Okay.
And World did a phenomenal job of having a good story, being a great entry point for new people into the series, and Wilds is going to be that as well. It is one of those games you and I can hop in and play together at any point. And it does... You've got sort of this indoctrination period with Monster Hunter where you're learning the ropes, you're trying to figure out what the loop is, but once the loop clicks, and this is pretty typical with anybody who likes Monster Hunter, they can tell you their story. It's like they can't put it down, 100 hours fly by, and it becomes like one of their favorite things ever. And
Right.
the game, it has a lot of systems, but at the end of the day, you're pretty much learning the loop of I make this food, I go on this hunt to farm these parts to make the armor I want to go beat a bigger, gnarlier monster. And
Right.
it's really simple at the core of it. And yeah, it was built for commuters, right? You've got a 15, 30-minute loop for people hopping on the train to go to their job or whatever. So yeah, I would love to play this with you. So if you pick it up, this is one of those things sitting on the couch, even on like a PlayStation. I wonder if it's going to have crossplay. Will Monster Hunter
I'm
Wilds?
pretty sure, yeah. I was just looking at it and it said
It will have crossplay.
Yeah.
Great. That is a game changer. So 100% got to play that. A co-op game that's coming just a little bit later, and maybe we can play this. Split Fiction, March 6th. Hazelight Studios, the It Takes Two developers. Did It Takes Two win Game of the... What did it win the year at the Game Awards? It won a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was a big deal. Yeah, it won Game of the Year.
Did it really? Okay, yeah. Great game. I think this was last month's PSN Essential free game.
I was so
as well.
stoked to see I had it on my PS5 loaded up, and I was like, all right, my wife and I are going to play this.
Yeah, that
Game of the Year, best multiplayer game, best family game.
Yes, it's going to be a great time. 2 players, always really well done, super good adventures. And then on the same day,
Suikoden
1 and 2 HD remaster. I never played these games, but I always remember seeing that name. You're going to play these.
Yes, I am literally only going to play them because I missed them back in the day, and every time I see the name, I just hear Psycho Mantis in my head. Oh, you play Suikoden!
Was that one of his lines if he checked your memory card?
Yes. So those of you who don't know, the original Metal Gear Solid 3? 2. No,
1.
3.
The original Metal Gear Solid.
It was 1? Okay, my brain is fried. Yeah, it was 1. It would read your PS1 memory card, and any game that they could recognize, it would be like, oh, so you played Castlevania or whatever. And
like
one of
Konami
the lines
games,
was, one of the lines would be for Suikoden. And so Psycho Mantis, who's this character that would read your memory cards, he would just be like, oh, you play Suikoden. Very nice. And it was just one of the many ways that game screwed with you. And then you had to set your controller to port 2 and all this stuff.
Because he could read your mind. He could read your inputs. And you had to figure
really
that out too, right?
Stuff.
Those are those things where you do the codec call and you'd have to think outside the box. Or there's another point in Metal Gear Solid 1 where you have to literally look on the back of the box for a picture of the codec frequency. Kojima meta from the beginning. I love those little things in our digital era. I wonder how they handle that in the digital versions of the Master Collection.
I think they just give you the PDF of them. At least on the PS3, they gave you the PDF of the manual as an extra bubble below the game that you could load up.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then you had on PS3, it was so much more lame because you had to go into the controller settings and be like, controller 1, port 2, and instead of just literally plugging it. But
oh man,
supposedly legendary old school JRPGs. I'm getting into those more as I age, so I'm gonna give them a try just because I want to hear Psycho Mantis in my head every time I put them in.
I'm very interested to hear what you think. I know for some people these are mountaintop JRPG experiences. So
yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is coming to the Switch on March 20th. I am a Xenoblade Chronicles fan. I have beat 1, 2, and 3, and the DLC for 1 and 2. I've probably put 150 hours into this series. I will not be getting Chronicles X. Chronicles X is much more gameplay focused. It's not a gigantic narrative adventure in the way that 1, 2, and 3 are. The Chronicles X fans, though, love this thing. This is, people are freaking out that this is coming.
Well, this is one of those games, if I'm remembering right, that was very limited print on the Wii U and got super expensive. And so getting a re-release is a really good thing because it's one of those games where I've never understood Nintendo is the biggest game company in the world, and somehow some of their games are just so limited that you can't get them. This is one of those that was really hard to get during the Wii U days because the Wii U itself was a not successful product.
This cart, or not cart, but the disc goes for so much, right?
So I'm excited to have it. Anytime someone actually reprints something that is scalped to heck and back. I'm like, I will buy it just to support the fact that you decided to let us buy it again without paying hundreds of dollars. Let's go.
I think maybe the price dropped on it or collapsed after the announcement of this, because now I'm finally seeing discs for like $30 on eBay. But
because no one wants the Wii U copy anymore if there's going to be a Switch copy.
That market is so fickle. That's crazy.
The game market is stupid.
And it's also, people have been wondering, like, where has this been? Monolith has been carrying Nintendo. People don't realize they were one of the studios that worked on Tears of the Kingdom and have been helping with so many of their other big releases. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to link the Game Rat article that I was looking at to compile this. So if there's other games that we missed that you're really excited for, I didn't put a lot of the PlayStation 5 games that are coming to PC this year, like Last of Us Part 2 and Spider-Man 2, I think. I'm not putting all that stuff down there, so. But
I'm excited that they're doing remasters of the next 3 Tomb Raider games. Like, it's cool to see that continue. We've had a lot of remasters where it's like, here's a couple games from this series, and then we never hear from it again, or the studio gets absorbed into making Call of Duty. So I'm excited to see that they're continuing the remaster of the Tomb Raider games, because I think those classic games are something a lot more people should experience.
You were just sending me a link last night or the night before. Apparently the old God of War games are getting a collection.
So it's still in rumor mill territory, but supposedly, from the speculation, like, I don't know how we get this far and it, just be completely made up. But supposedly they're completely remade. Not remade, remastered. But like, they're doing a full collection like they did in the PS3 days, where it's like 1, 2, 3 Ascension and the PSP games just ported up to PS5.
Oh my gosh.
And they're supposedly, it might be called the Greek Saga. This is all, like I said, still technically rumors, but like, it feels realistic enough that like we've been demanding it, and God of War has been such a money print. Like, surely they could have just paid a studio to port it over real quick for pretty cheap. That I'm gonna hold out hope that it's legit, because it only makes sense.
The timing of all this is really great with our discussions and whatnot. But
yeah,
Herman
right.
Holst
it feels like
saying,
they're just listening to us and somehow printing it all out.
Maybe well, hold on. Before I get there, Herman Holst has said that PlayStation is looking at opportunities to leverage its legacy IPs. And I quote, the numerous IPs that we hold are an important asset for PlayStation. And as a part of our efforts to strengthen our portfolio, not only developing new franchises, we are also continually looking at opportunities to leverage our legacy IP. Success of Astrobot, the quote's ended, by the way, this is my thoughts. The success of Astrobot winning Game of the Year, that kind of chill style, a 3D platformer, a family game, won Game of the Year, and loved it. We'll talk about that game a little bit later. These talks, it all just makes a lot of sense to me for them to pull out all the stops. They've got some incredible characters and really fun game types that would just be amazing right now on this new hardware. Yep. And this is a good point to switch here. Trends to watch for in 2025, like pure speculation. Maybe we're finally coming into the post-pandemic era where things might kind of get a little bit more normal. I think we are at the tail end of the games that were being developed during pandemic, work from home transitions, and this huge shift that the entire working world went through in the last 4-ish years. Pure speculation, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's really hard to keep that kind of thing in mind, because everything is so delayed, because anything we got in like 2020 was in development for years before that. So anything we're getting now was developed during those years. So I think you're right that we probably saw a lot of more limited scope and like more kind of zoomed in on specific elements that they could develop with smaller teams or under limited circumstances. And maybe we're going to see a lot more fleshed out in the coming years. And we're seeing new hardware announcements. Xbox still has some sort of hardware announcement that they're going to make that they keep teasing, that they're just going to keep teasing for ages. I think we're supposed to find out at CES, which is like next week. We're seeing a lot of rapid evolution of the space that I think you're right. I think it's the chains are coming off. We're seeing what has been made in 2022, 2023, that kind of thing. And a lot of it is a lot better.
Yeah. truly believe this next year, we're entering the back half of these console generations for PlayStation 5 and the series. And
No,
typically,
don't say that. They just came out this year.
that's how I feel too. But then I looked up the date and I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's been 5 years.
I've had this realization. I jumped on PS3 midway through its life cycle. I jumped on PS4 midway through its life cycle. And here I am, PS5, midway through the life cycle. And the nice part about that, like PS3 had a really killer back half. And PS4 had some pretty sweet games near the back half. And I think PS5 will be the same. Even though we just read a list of some really hype, awesome games coming out this next year. I don't think we're going to hear any big announcements of blow your mind stuff until Grand Theft Auto 6 reveals its release date and it comes out. I think there are tons of publishers who are literally going to sit on their releases, sit on their marketing budget, because what's the point? You will be drowned out completely. If GTA 6 is a September or October or November release date, if I'm a publisher, I'm holding back my killer games until that launches, and then I'll do the blitz and announce it. And I don't want my killer game just being drowned out, but what will be like the defining cultural gaming thing of the year, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it so often where like 2 games try to launch the same time as a big other game. Like that was my issue with Titanfall launching in between Battlefield and Call of Duty and those kinds of things. Like 100%. If you know the big game changer is coming, you just wait. Yeah, you have your awards shows. You can do them around there or like strategically plan, but otherwise you just kind of hold.
Yep.
And that's okay. Like it's gonna sound like I think this is maybe what we see sometimes. We have those years where we're like, where everyone's like, oh man, there's no new game announcements. What's going on? Why isn't anything coming out next year? And I think it's because a lot of studios wait for these big releases to pan out before they build their strategy. And so I think we saw a bunch announced for this year, but yeah, I think you're right. Nothing for end of this year or early 2026 until we know what that looks like.
I think that's great too. It's I hate when they all stack up the big releases at once. I mean, the Horizon
50
Curse,
games,
right?
holiday season.
Zero Dawn gets overshadowed by Breath of the Wild, and then Forbidden West made the same thing with Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like, come on, you're the same or pretty similar style of audience for this kind of game. Space it out.
It's just Zelda for PlayStation.
It's a spectacle. I think this next year will also show us more announcements for handhelds. I have probably a pretty strong sense. Obviously, the rumor is that Sony's been developing a handheld. I think those reports were like a few months old at this point. I think we're going to hear of a Sony handheld that is not like Portal or streaming. I think it's going to be an actual hardware style handheld that we learn about later this year or in 2026. And I think Xbox is probably going to make a similar move. Theirs will probably be more similar to like the numerous PC handhelds that are already out there. I'm trying to think of, what is the Asus one called?
Ally.
Yeah, the ROG Ally, and then
Lenovo
obviously Steam
Legion
Deck. And
Steam Deck, yeah.
There's so many of those.
I'm going to do a rare thing and have a hot take.
Throw it out. Let's hear it.
I don't know that a PlayStation like proper handheld makes sense. I say this as someone who I didn't actually purchase it. I borrowed from someone, but like I understood the PlayStation Portal. Like the subreddit for that thing is full of new dads who just had a kid who can't sit like play on the big TV or whatever and just want a little game screen. If the Portal was out when my kid was just born, I would have played through so many games on that thing. Like it is the ideal thing to, especially now that they added game streaming to it so you can take it with you. I don't know what they would run locally on a Portal other than older games. And maybe that's how we get like back compat boosted on the PlayStation ecosystem, is they port all these games to run on the Portal or something. Haha, port Portal. But I don't see them paring back their big games and offering like, okay, all these games got updated with a handheld mode or anything like that. And I don't see them having the power to run PS5 games at any proper capacity. Like I struggle to see where it fits into, like I said, the ecosystem of sorts. Whereas with Xbox, they're already like, yeah, we're just a PC, run our games anywhere, whatever.
Yeah.
It would make sense for them to just have an Xbox branded Steam Deck. But for PlayStation, I don't know how that fits in. So I am curious, and I will 100% give it a try if they do it, because I loved the PSP, I loved the Vita. If they want to develop a whole new console like SKU of games to go with it, that's amazing. But I don't know that I see it working.
I know exactly what you're saying. Like, you don't, not even a Nintendo has just a handheld exclusive SKU. They went into the new era of this thing plays it on both versions. Yeah, we don't have the horsepower to run a spectacle style game like a God of War Ragnarok, but whatever, our gameplay is so sick, and this is how we're choosing to do things moving forward. Let's just face it, man. If the PS3 is coming,
We're just gonna always bring that back out.
That's the only way I can picture it in my head, man. It's the 3 here. I know exactly what you're saying. I don't believe that they would develop a SKU specifically for handheld only. That doesn't make sense in this sort of time, in this era. But then also, what would it be? A $400 handheld pared down PS5? I don't feel like we have the tech right now to run it, and that thing would be so hot in your hand. Could you imagine?
I don't know how it works without having separate games. Like, and I love the era of the PSP and Vita games where you had your God of War PSP versions that people still wanted, and so they had to port back to the home console. And you had Gravity Rush, and there were like the Ratchet and Clank ones. Like, there were a bunch of spin-off games that paired with the big games. Like, I thought it was a great era, and I would enjoy it, but it doesn't seem like that's what, like, ever since Nintendo, like you said, bridged the home and handheld console, I don't think people are as into the sidecar kind of experience anymore. Yeah. And so I don't know what they would offer other than streaming games from your PS5. Like,
and
I don't.
Consumers would be like, why can't I just play God of War on this thing, right? Why can't I, or the new ones, right? They wouldn't understand why it would need to be a lower
it's a PlayStation
tech spec. Yeah, why couldn't I play these games on my Nintendo? I can play Tears of the Kingdom on the go, bro. Well, I think that would be the wild card prediction if we got a handheld announcement from them this year. But the Switch 2 seems like this is the year for that, and it'll be very, very cool to see what the specs are. Everything about it has leaked. I'm shocked. I've seen so many people taking cryptic pictures of the motherboard and like the dock for the thing, and I just don't. Are people crazy? Do they not see what Nintendo has done the last year and a half, or especially the last 9 months with their lawsuits? Like, help me understand this. Why is so much about it leaking?
Nintendo does not mess around and will send an army of samurais to your doorstep to kidnap you and throw you in jail. But at the same time, I think this speaks to just how anticipated this console is. It is 8 years old, the original Switch now. Like, it came out 2017?
I think so, yeah.
So we're hitting year 8 this year. Like, the best selling console ever, just past the PS2 finally, even though Sony tried to update their numbers.
I love that. It's like, oh, no, not yet, Nintendo, not yet.
Yeah. Give it another week.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. RIP the PS2, the GOAT. But, like, I think it just shows that consequences be damned. Like, everyone is just that stoked for it, that they're willing to leak this stuff, which is crazy. I don't think it's smart. And frankly, like, as a buyer, as a teenager, I probably would have eaten this stuff up. Although less so with the hardware specs, usually more about game stuff. But like, these days, I gain nothing by seeing a picture of the motherboard or seeing the silhouette of the shell or whatever. Until we have the actual details, I don't care. Like, I appreciate the hype cycle, I guess. Like, everyone is clearly that excited. But realistically, this doesn't give me anything as a buyer or would-be buyer. Like, I don't have new information. I don't really gain anything from this. So I don't understand the risk, but people are just really freaking excited.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place for us to hop on to our break. In the second half of the show, let's talk about PlayStation 5, some console stuff, and some interesting things about new tech.
Yeah.
All right, so Epos, a few days before the Game Awards, I picked up a PlayStation 5. I have been a late adopter on this console. I haven't touched it so far. I convinced myself I wasn't that interested. I didn't pay that much attention to it, but I have to say after the last 3 weeks, I guess, I am so hooked. I am so into this console. Can we just talk briefly about the experience? The controller, nobody ever really told me how sick those triggers are. This is like the coolest thing ever for games that utilize those little, what are they called? The active pushback or feedback, whatever.
Yeah, I don't responsive triggers. I don't remember what they're called, but it is a really clever way. So I tried being like a huge advocate for this controller when the console first launched, and everyone was just like, I don't get it. It doesn't do the stuff on PC, so why do I care? But like, so many aspects of it are really cool.
Yes. Yeah. I like it a lot, honestly. And I'm conflating two things here. Okay. So I'm mainly a PC gamer. I've been on PC pretty much exclusively for the last 8 years. Before that, 360, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1. That's like my era. That is my jam. But being able to just sit back on a couch, not at a desk, playing on the TV, the DualSense controller, the software, the quick load times, all of it feels very premium. And I like it right now a heck of a lot more than the PC side of things. Just obviously the titles I'm playing. I picked up Astrobot and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Astrobot, let's just nerd out about for a second. It won Game of the Year. I think this is probably my favorite game. Oh, I want to say the last 2-3 years. It's a hard time. One of my favorites of the last 5 years for sure. So joyful, such great design, and then the controller just, it kills it. If you haven't played with a PS5 controller, I don't really know how to describe it. The triggers push back and like the rumble zones and the speaker in the controller, it all feels like something new and fun. And then pair that with probably like one of the most dialed little 3D platformers I've played in forever. It's the only PlayStation game I have ever platinumed. I just got the platinum trophy yesterday. It was that much fun. You're playing through it right now. What do you think?
I will stand by that Astrobot is a prime example of a perfect video game, and that the DualSense controller might be an example of the perfect controller, at least for me. I've always preferred the PlayStation style, like symmetrical thumbsticks. So it's got that. Physically wise, especially within Astrobot, you've got the responsive triggers that adapt to different things, which I want to talk about in a moment. It's got the little like the again, I don't know what the features they call it are, but the vibration motors have like pinpoint accuracy. So like it can simulate rain in your hand or other things.
Yes.
That the Switch Pro controller tries to do, the Xbox controller tries to do, but it's not anywhere near as good. You've got the light bar around the touchpad that can change colors based on things. You've got the speaker on the controller. You've got the touchpad itself that can be used for things. All of these things combine, and it has motion control that actually makes sense, which I want to talk about. All of these things take everything that we've seen companies, including Nintendo, experiment with controllers over the past 20 years and just dials it in and keeps it from being distracting from the gaming experience. Instead, it just feels like an extension of it. And with Astrobot, which is a game I've been playing through with my kiddo, and we can just come in here for 30 minutes, knock out a couple levels. It is incredible. The integration of these things. So like there's a gacha claw machine for getting trophies to spend your coins on. And you have to really yank down the lever. You have to really like push the trigger past that point where it starts to lock on you. And it was so funny having my kid do it because he was like squeezing. He's like, I can't do it. And I'm like, no, you really got to push it. And he was just whoa, it really feels like I'm pulling the lever. And like,
yes.
little things that if you're going to be a closed off, like PC gamer, I say as a PC gamer, I'm not, whatever. Like you're going to be like, well, that doesn't matter. It's just about the games. But like it truly extends the experience. And oh boy, even just seeing the name Astrobot gets the song stuck in my head. It is such a pure good experience, and one that, again, I'm enjoying the heck out of as a 30-something, and then I'm able to share it with my 4, almost 5-year-old who is addicted, like not even in a What I think makes it perfect is he's addicted to Minecraft. He thinks about Minecraft. He wears Minecraft. He plays with Minecraft toys. He wants to play Minecraft. It is very hard as a parent to like limit that experience. Whereas with Astrobot, because you have the classic gameplay levels, we can come in here, knock out 2 levels and like a side level or something. And he's good. He's like, yeah, that was great. And then he'll come in and start bragging to his mom. Like yesterday, we played a couple levels, and as soon as my wife came out of their office for work, he was just like, Mom, we played Astrobot and we saw some triangle dudes, and the boss is an octopus and he's locked up and we can't get him yet, and then there was a Minecraft world because it was all made out of blocks and blah 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 blah, and he's just like, wow. And it's just the best thing ever. And the game just like, I have 0 notes, like 0 complaints. There may be things I struggle with that I find difficult sometimes, like or like a bot that I didn't even know there was a spot for, and it's like, how did I miss a bot? I got them all. Where did that one go? But like, I have no real complaints about the game itself.
Yep. It's great. It's great. And hearing that story is amazing because, that's why I loved it so much. Is it's very video gamey in the sense that, 15 minutes, just go be a level. And it's satisfying. And every level's polished and really good and has replayability. And I don't give a rip about completionist stuff. Like, it should say something. I don't have a single platinum trophy except for this one. This game was so fun. I was like, I need to get every bot. I need to get every puzzle piece. I need every trophy. And it just naturally happened, by the way. If you go for all the bots and all the puzzle pieces, which are very fun and easy, and I did replay a bunch of levels to go get them, dude, you'll get all the coins you need to unlock all of the unlockables for the game. There's no like 20-hour coin grind at the end of this thing. And good note on that little, gotcha machine where you unlock outfits for the bots that you go out and you save in the world. If you pull the adaptive trigger really slowly, there's actually points where like it squeezes the little glass gotcha ball, and there's 3 points where the glass starts to shatter, and you'll feel it on the controller. And I was that grouchy PC person who's like, oh, none of that stuff matters. It's just about the games, bro. Yeah. And now I've flipped, and I'm totally just like, if I could be wearing a PlayStation shirt right now, I'm kind of in that moment of that hype. I'm in the honeymoon phase. I get it. I wish there were more games, like giant first-party titles for the thing. But what is there is so nice. Another element that I enjoyed, the game help feature, which I thought was stupid. Okay, like years ago, you can basically press the home button, pull up a little card for game help, and in the game that you're playing, if it's supported, right, if it's got proper implementation by the developer, it will give you a little video clip of a hint to help you with something you're doing. So an Astrobot, let's say you got 6 out of the 7 bots in this world, and you cannot find it for the life of you. You press the little PlayStation button, you click game help, and it automatically will show you bot location 6 or whatever. And it's a community member's little 30-second recording of where they found the bot. You can upvote it, downvote it, whatever. But like 90% of the time, it's really helpful and good. I thought the feature was silly because, of course, we all have smartphones. Of course, we could all just look things up. It is so much easier and nicer to not pull up your phone, to not get no YouTube ads or whatever, trying to find the clip you're looking for. But to just literally, from that ecosystem, see the video clip, go back in the game. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy that feature and how great it is. And I thought from the outset, hearing about that, I thought it was dumb. I thought it was completely useless. But you try and look up a bot location on an IGN article or on a YouTube video, you're wasting 30 seconds of searching and ads and bloat and junk. And guess what? You probably just saw like a work notification or a text or something that took you out of the experience of just focusing on the thing that you were doing.
I wish the Switch had it because there are so many things we have to look up for the Paper Mario thing and it's just like, it's infuriating because the guides are just like all over the place. And this is an example of something that often game stuff, there will be a feature that a console does that PC takes on after the fact because it's like, whoa, that's obvious. And PC can just implement whatever features on Steam or in individual games. This is an example of something that, as far as I know, started on Steam and made its way to console here because in the Steam overlay, you can pull up the guides section, which brings up the community guides and you got written guides, screenshots, whatever. I use that on Steam Deck all the time and I always wished it was on console. Yeah. And Xbox has done nothing with their overlay since the Xbox 360. That generation, both the PS3 and the Xbox had pretty similar. Actually, the Xbox had a better little home button overlay because you could go to your settings or like view messages or whatever. Whereas PlayStation 3 was just kind of like you could turn off your console, and that's pretty much it. With the next generation, Xbox made it more modern, but didn't add any new features. And same thing with this generation. Whereas with PlayStation, you have that help feature. And I don't know if you've played the Spider-Man games yet, but you can like react to in Spider-Man, at least in Miles, there's like a social media thing where it like tells you what little side quests or like crimes are happening or whatever. You can pull that up and just like jump into those and then be brought back to your main mission wherever you were. Like you can just go back and forth. And so it's like, here's a quick activity. Here's a quick activity. And in some games, and I think Astrobot is one of them, you can like save your game at a certain point and turn it off and like switch games and then put the game back in, and you can quick resume back to that spot because it remembered where you were without having to go through the whole startup of the game and everything. It is an insane like overlay feature that I think is very under the radar in terms of like modern discussions.
Okay, so the bummer there, this was the feature I was really looking forward to. That quick resume feature, they just removed in an update. Like
really? It just
November.
Showed it to me for Astrobot. Huh. Okay.
So the popular PS5 feature mysteriously disappeared. It lost the resume activity ability. This was back in late October, and nobody knows why. And Reddit was like in a tizzy over it because I did want to use this thing. I don't know if it was causing memory leak or issues. If it's coming back, if people know. I'd love to find out because I did research this like 2 weeks ago because I was looking for that specific feature. And I think you still have the resume activity button, but I'm pretty sure it just boots you up into the main menu now. And so it is like, I wanted to experience that. Maybe it will come back. That is sort of a bummer. But overall, go for it.
I will say another feature that all of the consoles pretty much this generation have that you can't get on PC without just like wasting a bunch of power or something is the quick resume from sleep. Like you can just put your console to sleep and then pick it back up and keep playing. Whereas on a PC, you got to leave the game running.
Well, and this is a feature that like I always felt was hit or miss with the PlayStation 4 for me. Sometimes I would put it into rest mode and I would think the game would be suspended and it wouldn't. And I'd look it up and I was like, the Switch, it is wonderful. Something comes up, I put it down and I know I can get back into the game at that point. To be able to do that with the PS5, like right now, I'm looking at the PS5. It's in rest mode. I know if I want to pick up Forbidden West, where I was at the last time I played it, I just push the button and I'm right back in. That freaking crazy SSD is super fast.
Yes.
I'm not trying to console fanboy over here. Like I said, I'm mainly a PC gamer the last 8 years. I am aging. My priorities are shifting and changing. I was in early mid-20s, still PC all the way, and it does some things that are just incredible and amazing, and everything has its pros and cons. But I'll just say, I love how easy and fast it is to get into one of these crazy good experiences, to easily capture footage, to have it shared to the PS app, right? And to have the games that are just basically optimized for that closed system. We're in this era now where even with a super slamming PC, so many things are not getting optimized the way they should be. And I don't want to have to sit here and tweak settings a bunch unless I'm really wanting to tinker or to spend the time and effort to get it on a TV. Yes, you can play PC games on a TV. But then it's like every time I plug in the TV, change the main monitor, change the resolution. There's always 2 or 3 minutes of BS.
Yeah.
And it adds up, and I'm old, and I'm tired, and I am really digging the console side of things right now, especially, maybe it's because I missed most of this generation or the last 8 years of console stuff outside of the Switch for the most part, and I'm coming back in, I'm going, well, this is pretty convenient. These are some pretty cool features, and visually, and from a tech perspective, these games run really well, at least for me. If I'm playing an FPS, of course I want to play it on PC. If I'm playing something I want, 120 frames or whatever, PC if you can. But I think the future for me in most games I'm playing and buying, especially since I've left the multiplayer world for the most part, I'm on PlayStation 5 for the most part this next year because nothing beats quick boot up, sitting on my couch, playing an hour before bed, and not messing with all the extra stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes. I also want to say I think you picked kind of the perfect time to get into it.
I
We
got so
talked-
lucky with
Yeah.
Astrobot, right?
Yeah, what an introduction to a console.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that we were talking before, like you typically were getting into the new consoles mid-generation. I feel like the first half of every console generation these days is almost like the inverse of a bell curve, in that when you first,
Yeah.
if you get the console on launch, you're hyped, it's all new and futuristic, and there's the couple launch games and you're like, this is amazing, and it can run a couple of the older console games even amazinger. And that was me in 2020 and 2021. And then you have a couple years, and this was obviously influenced by pandemic development times and whatever, but where like it feels a little droughty. A lot of people were memeing that the PS5 supposedly has no games, and same thing with Xbox and whatever. Like the period was the well was a little dry. The system wasn't as new and fresh, and then we hit that mid generation where there's a pro console, so the consoles are cheaper, so you can get one more easily. There's a ton more games coming out. You are at that point where like it is really good again.
Yeah.
And you're seeing all the polish that's been added in updates, like, and unfortunately a feature that was removed in updates, but you know, it's a really good time to get into it, even if you're not getting the pro system. And I am going through the same thing. Whereas I looked back at my Xbox, my Nintendo, my Steam, and my PlayStation recaps, and I didn't even have enough hours on my PS5 last year to get a recap. And that broke my heart, because it is by far my favorite system of the past couple generations. I've had incredible experiences on it already, and I was just so wrapped up in multiplayer and PC gaming last year that I didn't touch it. And I'm like, I am going all in this year. I've already bought a handful of new games. I want to sit back on the couch. I just got the text notification that my Pulse 3D headset was delivered, so I could try out the 3D audio.
Dude. Yes.
I'm so stoked to try that out. Like, I am all in, and I'm starting to buy games that I could get on PC on the console, because I want to just have that, like you said, easy setup, just sit back on the couch experience that I'm not getting on PC.
Yes. And again, I think it's an age thing. Like for me specifically, and
It
the games I'm playing. I mean, I was mainly PC because multiplayer and FPS were the go-to, and that would be where I would want to play. If you are a hardcore FPS multiplayer fan, of course, you probably, or an esports player, get a PC, build a PC. There's so much value there, for real. I was going to say,
the mouse and the frame rates and everything, but
with the headsets, make sure they have a thing with their 3D audio where you build your own profile.
Yes.
Go through the test, because it is like, it's super cool. The games that support it, like Astrobot, will blow your mind how it sounds, dude. It's crazy.
I am super stoked, and I know there will be comments. I am someone who has probably thousands of dollars into hi-fi audio gear. Like, I have bougie headphones and preamps and DACs and all that stuff. I have a good pair of wireless Bluetooth headphones. Like, I understand that gaming headsets aren't real headphones or whatever, but the 3D audio, when you can tune it like that, like, I already had a demo of that at CES in 2020, and it was incredible back then. It's only gotten better now. And specifically, I was excited to try the Pulse headset, because every review on Reddit or whatever I saw, everyone said even if it wasn't their favorite headphone from sound or anything else, it was their favorite for wearing with glasses. And that is something I struggle with all of my expensive headphones, even the ones I'm wearing right now. It is not a great experience with glasses. And so everyone's like, yeah, it's my favorite headphones for glasses. So that plus the crazy 3D experience, like, I am so stoked.
I'm really curious to hear your feedback, because again, I got the headsets as well, because I don't have any wireless headphones anymore. And the bummer is, when you go and look at gaming specific headsets, it's all about, here's your Astros with your super sick inline mic, and it's for talking with your teammates. And it's like, I'm not going to be talking to anyone. It's nighttime. I'm trying to be quiet and play 30 minutes of like Horizon before bed. I just want it to sound good. And I've ordered
Xbox. Oh, go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Xbox has really strict certification requirements for accessories. And so for console headsets, there's usually the Xbox and PC one, which is like the premium model, because they have to put in all the licensing and whatever. And then the PS5 one gets treated like a second-class citizen, because it has to be a separate model, and they don't want to invest as much. And so it's a mess.
Ugh. That space is crazy. Gamer gear. Oh my goodness. Get yourself a nice pair of Audio Technicas. Call it a day. All right, so you mentioned the whole sentiment of there's not a lot of games. And I, as an outsider I didn't early adopt. Early adopting stinks. That's why I didn't
Yep.
hop on board for so long. There was nothing that really interested me. And after playing, so right now, I beat Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Incredible, gorgeous game, amazing experience. Astrobot finished. I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West right now and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I did pick up God of War Ragnarok on the sale. I'm very much into like buy your games on sale. And so I'll load up at a holiday sale and then not touch any purchases because I know I just bought 6 months of games, right?
Yep.
Well, playing through Forbidden West or looking at Rift Apart, like just visually how insane and dialed the experience is. And then Ragnarok, I haven't started yet, but you and I both played God of War 2018. I know the production value I'm into. I don't know if this is the direction Sony continues. Of course, you're not going to have 30 or 40 or 50 must-have big AAA exclusives because the production value we are reaching now with games is so mind-blowing. I can't believe it is real. There were moments in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and there are moments in Forbidden West from just a visual perspective alone. We have reached such a silly blockbuster level right now that these, of course, are like 7-8 year games with gajillions of people working on it. We kind of crossed this Rubicon, I feel like, with movies during the Marvel era, where it was just unbelievable how many visual effects staff work on a film and how big these things are getting. The result, basically, of this move by Sony to pursue gigantic blockbusters, I believe, comes with the side effect here of you can't have the same quantity. I want more games like an Astrobot. Seriously, like if we go into PlayStation 6, we still get some of those crazy over-the-top mega blockbuster giant narrative games. That is awesome. But there needs to be more Astrobots in the portfolio. Does that resonate?
Yes. So I am, this is not something I have coined, but like I am calling that tier of game, the Horizon, the God of War, those are now quadruple-A games. Those are not triple-A games.
Let's put it that makes a lot of sense.
And it's great that we can get those, but that should not erase the AAA or AA gaming space. And I think we need to have both. That is the big thing we are always advocating here is we don't want to erase these games, but we want to be able to have both. And it's really hard because a studio like Insomniac, which made the Spider-Man games, Ratchet and Clank, they are effectively the tech experiment and demo team for PlayStation. Like, we'll talk about it potentially in a minute, but Mark Cerny had a big PlayStation about all the new tech for PS5 Pro. He did an interview with Digital Foundry, and they had the Insomniac tech lead on with them because they are the ones actually experimenting with all the new tech that PlayStation comes up with and putting it into their games to push the hardware further and further. They are basically just an in-house tech team for the console company. And so, of course, they're going to have these big things, but that means that they have been sucked up out of the traditional AAA role, and we still want those games to come out. We still want the series of games that can come out every couple years and whatever. And I don't know. It's cool to see the evolution of the media, but I absolutely, like you said, I want more Astrobots and I want more smaller games that can be developed more frequently and keep iterating on themselves.
Well, I want to add to that right there because we'll get into the Mark Cerny comments, but the catalyst for me wanting to pick up the PS5, we talked about PlayStation icons on like episode 3 or 2 of the show. So I picked up Rift Apart on the PC on the November sale. I've got a dialed NVMe SSD in the PC, and I figured, okay, cool, I want to experience this game. But if you remember, when they were revealing the PS5, Rift Apart was the game that they were showing off, really utilized the PlayStation 5's Ultra 6 Super SSD architecture, right? As your character, you jump between worlds and it instantly loads, and it was incredibly impressive. Well, on the PC, I don't know if it was an optimization thing or what, or an issue on my end, could have been user error. I had little hitches. Even with a super screaming drive, I would go through those moments in the gameplay. It would hitch for just like a half a second. but it kind of ruined the effect. Every time it was happening, it was like, oh, dang, bummer. This is like a compromised version of the experience.
Yeah.
And even though I could get a nicer frame rate and it looked really polished, I was like, I don't want to experience this, what is ultimately a tech demo game for the PlayStation 5, like what it can do in its feature set. I don't want to experience the compromised version if possible. I had saved, the thing was on sale, and so that was the catalyst for it. And then, yeah, playing Rift Apart, dude, it absolutely makes sense why they are on the cutting edge of the engineering side of things, because it uses all of the toys and the cool stuff from a tech perspective that the PlayStation 5 gives you. And there were moments, I've shown you some of the screenshots, where I don't get how we are at this point in gaming where it looks that good and it's that real. And boy, Quadruple-A is a good term, because playing FF7 Rebirth, the scope of this game is absurd. Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1 is like 25 hours to go through the main story. And it was a big, epic game. It was technically incredible at the time. And Nomura and Square Enix have been putting together a 3-part game that takes that 25-hour PS1 title, turns it into a 100-hour. By the time we're done, it'll be 100 hours of Michael Bay tier production quality movie gameplay cinematic insanity. And I think about the scope of what they did, at least in Remake. I'm not trying to spoil too much, but they took the whole Midgar section, which is not very long in the PlayStation 1 version, made it into a sick 25-ish hour amazing cinematic blow your mind kind of game. And now with Rebirth, they're doing open world and doing it really well. And this scope is reaching a point that seems ludicrous to me, and we're moving into the 10-year game cycle. And it goes back to what Sean Layden said, where he's worried if the industry keeps going this direction, we're going to lose creativity, ingenuity, and you're going to have studios taking such gigantic risks that you can't fail, and you have to move crazy amounts of product in order to justify an 8 or 9 year dev cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about a lot in the past like that. But let's jump to the Mark Cerny thing here real quick. Here's what I was trying to express to you. It feels like Sony is really interested in developing new ways for, is upscaling the right way to call it? Because Mark was basically saying we're reaching sort of a brick wall when it comes to rendering tech. And we know a lot of stuff on PlayStation 5, it's not rendering native 4K, it's rendering and then doing all sorts of cool upscaling tech, like checkerboarding and things that make it look really nice on a bigger screen, but you're not getting raw 4K out of the hardware, the same way like a Epic PC build would maybe be pushing for that raw 4K, right? Or DLSS and that kind of tech. Is the future more of this upscaling technology, the machine learning AI stuff? Like, are we reaching the point where consoles aren't really going to be scratching for native 4K? They're just going to be working towards new tech that makes it look like that. Is that a good way to summarize it? I'm probably talking way out of my depth here.
No, you are completely right. And people get really cynical about this, especially from the PC side. But the thing is, consoles have been doing this from day one. The Super Nintendo, known for its a beautiful 240p crisp pixel graphics, they literally rendered half of the TV screen so that because they couldn't render the whole screen at a time, which gave us that smooth 240p experience. But the trick was that they were only rendering half of the lines that a normal video signal had. With 480i on the PS2, you were rendering the fields instead of individual frames. So you were just rendering half of the frame at a time. You jump up to PS3 and Xbox 360, I think maybe 2 games were rendering, I mean, my number is not accurate, but maybe a handful of games rendered at native 720p or 1080p. That was not a real experience. The rest were 640p, 480p upscaled, even back then. Just we didn't have good technology for it yet. And there was a bug in the PS5 or in the PS3 scaler, so you didn't really get 1080p output a whole lot. This has been the compromise on consoles the whole time, and it's worked. And in some cases, it was seen as an advantage, like on the Super Nintendo, or even on a lot of 7th generation consoles as well.
Yep.
It is the future. It is an incredible iteration on what we've had this entire time. And what effectively happens is they took the idea of what if we rendered at a lower resolution and spit it out in the native 4K and then found ways to make it better. And the reason you would want to do this, the reason you would want this over just native whatever the game ran at, which for a lot of games these days with the dynamic rendering, it could drop down to like 720p or something.
Yeah.
A couple things. Most TVs, even newer ones, they're getting better, but most TVs do not have good scalers built into them. So if you feed, like I remember getting my first 4K TV, and then that Monster Hunter game I talked about earlier on playing on the Wii U, playing that in the 720p forced output of the Wii U, it looked awful. It had this weird sharpening effect that I could not turn off. It was laggy because the scaler in my TV was crap. It looked horrible. Trying to feed non-native resolutions into TVs ends up a very poor experience. And so whatever you can do to make the signal just be the native res of your TV automatically improves image quality and input latency, even if you don't do anything to it.
Yeah.
But then they wanted to make it better. And so we've entered this era of AI upscaling things, which takes, like, it started with just, okay, we'll take the final frame, like on Xbox 360 and stuff. We'll take the 640p output, whatever arbitrary resolution we can hit, and then just stretch it up. And that was fine for a while. Now they are taking things in the rendering pipeline of the game, taking information from the motion and from the individual graphics elements, and they are using dedicated trained machine learning, quote unquote AI, to extrapolate that to what it would look like if it was rendered natively. And at first this looked really, really bad. And then within 2 years, it looked really, really good. And we are at the point now that it can actually look better than native in certain scenarios with the NVIDIA version, which is called DLSS.
Yes.
There are side-by-sides where taking DLSS running at like a step down or whatever in resolution ends up looking better than native because we are at such an absurd high resolution. When you have all those tiny details and lines and whatever, it's just too much. You get too much little noise and chatter and too much to focus on. Whereas it's like a smoothing filter whenever you do the AI upscaling where you can actually see a little bit better because you don't have as much crazy texture stuff happening. It's like the difference of movies versus video. Like you take a video camera and everything is super sharp and crisp and it looks hyper real, but it doesn't look great. And then you look at a movie, which is using cinema cameras, which aren't that sharp, and they're using 50-year-old lenses, and everything's smoothed out a little bit, and it seems more cinematic and more appealing to look at. It's the same kind of idea there. And so we've seen every year this tech just leaps forward, and PlayStation is now partnering with AMD for the future of developing this further, both on PC and PS5 Pro, and just taking it to crazy levels.
So many questions. That was such a good explanation.
Sorry, I know that was long-winded.
No, I literally need this because I do feel like I'm fairly confused on a lot of it. Okay. AI has become such a buzzword, obviously, in the tech space the last 3 or 4 years. And even in the Mark Cerny video talking about the PS5 Pro stuff, they're developing machine learning architecture and dropping those kind of buzzwords that get, investors stoked. Are they leaning into these, words like AI and machine learning just because it's kind of the hype thing to talk about right now? Because honestly, like AI has been around for a long time. The large language models, that's the new hypeness. But like we've got AI-esque elements in our tech for forever. We're now just really leaning into the buzzword style of it, right?
Yeah, like we reached a point with compute power and like optimized silicon for these tasks that we can do it at a scale we've never been able to do. So the machine learning process is you basically take like I'll use a picture as an example. Like you'll take a picture of a dog and then you'll give it 2 more pictures and tell it to pick which one is still a dog. And then you tell it whether it did a good job or not. And it refines its results based on your feedback. And originally, like we've been doing that, like you said, for decades at this point. But to do that at the scale required to get really, really good results is like years and years and years of compute power or like compute time shrunk into a very, very small amount of time. And so we've reached a point with the hardware where we can do all these millions and millions of tests and comparisons and feedback loops kind of automated and on very powerful data centers or specialized hardware repeatedly over and over and over to fine tune these things, that we're now getting these crazy results where you can spit out a whole picture out of basically nothing, or words, or train a dedicated algorithm thing to tell you what your game should look like at 4K when rendered at 720p or something. Like,
Yeah.
it is just the acceleration of our processing hardware to be able to just like scale this to absurd levels. It is
wow.
It is a buzzword, but it's also just like a massive leap in kind of the iteration of what we've been doing.
It's the only direction to go. Because I think about it, if you wanted to right now just play Cyberpunk 2077 on PC, 4K, 60 FPS, Ultra, you're still going to need DLSS. You're probably going to need like around an i9, right? Like a 12900 or something around that era, and then 3080 plus, most likely. And again, you're going to need DLSS at some level, or whatever AMD's version is of it too, I'm going to guess. And so this all makes sense. The brute force of trying to get a 4K 60 FPS, like ultra style game going, that probably doesn't even make sense for like a PlayStation 6 era. We're still a long time out from that. And it seems like maybe the conversation is shifting. Well, why are we chasing that so hard if we can come up with tech that can do it in a different way?
Yeah. So in the interview that Mark Cerny did after the presentation with Digital Foundry, he kind of almost slipped about referencing a PS6.
Yeah.
This is definitely like preparing for that kind of level. I don't think we're going to see a focus on raw horsepower again. Like, and that is why you see with the PS5 Pro, if you look at the specs, they increased the like graphics horsepower a bit to be able to accommodate these new techniques and things like that. But the CPU is untouched, and overall, it's not a huge leap forward in hardware. It's just hardware that can do these things better to give us better graphics and better upscaling to make it look better. And the results that you've seen, like you've been playing Final Fantasy Rebirth, the people I've seen that have really, like John Linneman, like you talked about, who have really sat there and done side-by-sides PS5, PS5 Pro on Rebirth, are like, it looks like a whole new game because of the extra little detail and stuff you can get rendered in there.
Yeah.
We're seeing a point where we hit 4K. We hit the wall of 4K with the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro. That was 8 years ago now.
Yep.
It was a long time ago. And obviously we could reach to 8K at some point. That is something that the PS5 Pro can now do, even though it was on the box of the PS5 and it could never actually do it. But no one has 8K TVs. No one's going to be jumping at them anytime soon.
Yeah,
and
it's
I am
a long way
someone
away.
Yeah, I am someone who laughs every time someone says that. I'm like, no, everyone always gets the bigger thing, because people said that about 4K, and we very quickly started adopting 4K. I am very confident that we can get so much more out of 4K displays in terms of refresh rates and the upscaling tech and stuff, that 8K, even though we had displays 8 years ago, it has no real consumer advantage when we're still finding ways to get so much out of 4K. Whereas with HD, we kind of did it, and then it was like, okay, we're here. Now what? Whereas with 4K, we're just discovering so many of these new things. I think rastering, and that's what it's called when you're not using the upscaling, it's called raster performance, because you're just raw rendering the stuff. That is basically going away. I do not, even me on PC, I do not play a single game that supports DLSS without it on, or FSR, which is the AMD version. And it offers so many advantages on the console hardware that can allow us to get better graphics for less performance. There is no real advantage to running it native. You can sometimes see like a little bit of an improvement if you're not getting the best results with the fancy AI upscaling, if you're at a PC and you're up close on a monitor.
Yeah.
But the consoles are designed for big TVs that you sit back on the couch on, and you don't see the little tiny imperfections. You just see the improvement in the overall experience. And that is what matters most. And as you and I both are having these priority shifts where we're focused on that kind of experience more, you just get so much out of it. Like, yeah, if I am on PC and I want every little detail as my eyeballs are glued 2 inches from the screen, maybe I'll do native. But like more and more, I just want the bigger picture.
And if I'm playing a visual powerhouse narrative game, it's the TV, it's the couch,
Yeah.
it's that experience I prefer. Now, I will say, if you're an FPS gamer and you're on mouse and keyboard, you want the power, you want the frames, because get yourself a 144 hertz monitor. I've never even tried anything above that. I'm sure the 240s feel incredible. And yeah, you will feel a difference instantly. But those are the experiences where, like, if I'm playing competitively, I'm going to lower the specs of the game to get the most frames possible. And I'm going to, now that I've moved mainly to the narrative side of things, I can't really feel much beyond 60 on a controller. Yeah, it feels ultra smooth, like if I'm playing Pseudo Regalia on the PC unlocked frame rate or whatever. But if I'm playing most games and they're hitting 60 on a controller, I don't really care. And it's smooth. Yeah, I mean, dynamic resolution really sucks, especially if you're playing like the Switch, where you could literally on Xenoblade Chronicles in handheld mode, it would go down to like 240. And you're like, this is mush. This is literal mush. And look at Halo 5 or Halo Infinite, some of the way it handles its dynamic resolution trickery, where if you look at the difference or the distance, a Spartan will run at like 5 frames a second.
Man, that killed me in Halo 5 so much.
Yeah.
Like I just,
and it's in Infinite. Go play Infinite on your Xbox One, your VCR. You can see it. It's hilarious. Like, I get it. It's a compromise, but those things are a bummer. But now we're hitting this era, and I guess this goes back to the whole conversation about PS5 at the start. Do you care about the raw numbers, or do you care about the experience? And I think I'm now leaning more in the experience. So thank you for shedding light on this, because this is fascinating to me. Like, it's like we're making a huge turn in the direction. The arms race for the biggest, most compute floppage is shifting. Now it's the coolest tech that can do the experience the best.
Yeah. And I do want to say the stuff you described that like happens in Halo and stuff, theoretically, this kind of upscaling avoids some of that, because those games, they had some of that magic, sure, but like they had to do the sacrifices in the level of detail, the texture pop in, the reduced frame rates in the distance, those kinds of things, because they were still limited, even at whatever resolution they were rendering at, they were still so limited on performance. Whereas if you can just render everything lower and use the AI magic to upscale it the rest of the way, you don't have to sacrifice as much in those kind of weirder places. And so I think we'll see less of that too, because that was so cool. Distracting.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, that you say 8 years ago, right? I remember the PlayStation 4 era because I got a PS4 Pro. And yeah, the early checkerboarding days, there were moments where who cares if it's 4K? You can tell that the internal resolution has dropped so much, it's just ugly now to hit like some frame rate target.
A character's hair is just like getting Thanos snapped as you're running around.
Yeah, it's like the old internet days when your YouTube player would drop, right? Down to like 480p. And you're like, am I being throttled? What happened here? Like, I hate that. When it jumps between quality, and especially our streaming services now, like they don't give you the granularity, right? Netflix will just change or drop down if your bandwidth shifts. And it's so irritating. You're like, no, buffer, please fix it.
Yes. I want to say as one last note, as someone whose job is literally like main channel job is video quality and stuff, I'm always surprised if like my kiddo's watching a cartoon or a kid's show on Netflix or Paramount or whatever service. It looks fine. Like most of the time, if we have good internet, like it looks great. And then if I go stand up in front of our, like, I forget what size it is, like 50-inch TV or whatever, and actually go like put my eyes to it, all the like outlines of the cartoon characters and stuff look like absolute garbage. And I'm like, wow, this compression is bad. But then I go sit on the couch and I'm like, wow, I don't see it at all. I don't care anymore. And as someone whose job is that, like that is what you're kind of going for with this upscaling stuff, is you are not supposed to sit with your eyes on the screen and see the little things. Like no one is supposed to care about that. You're supposed to sit back and just play the game. And this makes that experience better.
You know, that's pretty revealing, because playing on the couch, I'm like 10 feet away from the TV.
Right.
And I don't get up close and personal. Sometimes I do, you go get water and I'll pause it. Horizon is just a graphical spectacle. So that engine, the Decima engine, the one that they were using for Death Stranding 2 and Death Stranding 1, it's so beautiful.
They should use that engine for another Killzone.
Please, Guerrilla. Maybe that's one of the old IPs that they bring back. But all right, let's end with a final segment here. We had a viewer submit a comment here on, I think, our previous episode of the show, and I'm going to read it. This is Know a Riddle. Hey, BBK, I've really been enjoying the podcast. I've never been much of a podcast guy myself, but you and Epos have strangely relaxing voices, and I find a lot of your conversation topics insightful and relatable. A year ago, I had a gaming experience that I feel would make for a good topic, and it might be helpful to other viewers. Roughly this time last year, I was playing VR when I stumbled into my PC, and after hours of troubleshooting, I had deduced that I broke the motherboard. For economic reasons, I didn't build a new one for 2 months or so. During this time, I got out the PlayStation 4. I only had Bloodborne and Shadow of the Colossus on it. Between those two games and the two games I had on my Quest, I got more enjoyment out of gaming than I had in a long time, before or since. So I pose the question: how does someone who has already built up a dread-inducing Steam library escape the stress of getting home from work or class and opening Steam to be immediately overwhelmed by the thought of 300 games sitting in their library? They might be uninstalled or hidden, but you know that they're still there. Specifically, from the perspective of a college student who can't afford to repurchase all of their favorite games physically. Even if you don't use my story, I look forward to the next episode. Happy holidays. Thank you, Noah Riddle. Well, this is a topic we've talked about a bunch, Epos. I sort of view it as that backlog dread, middle log dread, whatever you want to call it. So what would be your advice to Noah Riddle off the bat here?
I would use that and turn it around, because a lot of people are just like, I don't have anything to play, games aren't fun anymore, or whatever, when they get stuck in that cycle of, like you said, backlog dread, backlog guilt, whatever they're feeling. I would use that experience and be like, okay, games are still fun. I really liked these. And just pick one at a time. What are you looking forward to playing next? What, based on what you just played and that energy you have, what excites you? And then, because it sounds like they did eventually build up another PC, I would be like, okay, just install that game, or pick 2 games and just install those games and just have fun with them. The more games you install, the more you're putting in front of your plate. Like it's a lot to see how much you have in your library. I have like 1,300 games in my Steam library. I understand. But if you limit just how many you install, and then you can click the little play icon in your Steam library and show only installed locally games, then just treat that as your list. If you get bored of those games, then you have to sit down and make that decision. Okay, I'm going to uninstall this one or hide it or whatever and install another one, just like you'd go buy a new game for PS4 from GameStop and put it on your shelf or trade it in. But treat it as just a short list. Don't worry about the backlog, because these games, the philosophy I've been developing recently is, these days you have access to so many free games that your backlog blends in with the literal existence of every game that you could have access to.
Yeah.
So you can't worry about it after a certain point. So just treat it like when you went shopping for your games for your PS4. You had Bloodborne and Shadow of the Colossus. Think about what led you to pick those up from GameStop. Maybe even go to a game store. Maybe even go to the game store and shop for games that pretend to shop for games, but know like what games you have. And be like, okay, that one looks exciting on the shelf, so I'm going to go install that from my Steam library and go play it. Something that gets you physically or tangibly involved in that selection process, which is something that a lot of us love about the physical games. Yep. Something that gives you that step of involvement rather than just scrolling an infinite list would help a ton.
Once you're at that wall of games on Steam and you're already in analysis paralysis, it's so hard. It's like what you just said. I can go and I have like 3 PlayStation 5 boxes. I purposely got the one with the disc drive because I want to buy physical for the most part, right? But it's so easy to just add digitally. This last month, we had that Amazon Prime crazy month where it's like, here's 15 GOG games that you won't play. And if I just look at that stuff for too long, no wonder you stall out. I would say you had access to 2 phenomenal games on PlayStation 4. Bloodborne is one of the best games of the system. Shadow of the Colossus, one of the best video games of all time. What are you trying to get out of gaming? That's the most important thing, right? Yep. Are you playing just to tick games off of a checklist? That sucks. That's not that fun, right? If you're playing to just have fun with the hobby, you should be able to have a smallish or medium list of games where you go in, you play it, and you're not worried about optimizing every moment of fun and then having FOMO afterwards, right? I think most of the time that list is so big and oh my gosh, I'm wasting my time and my money and I have to get value out of all 300 of those games. No, like this is hobby time. And there's probably other areas of life that are causing stress and putting undue pressure on this one in order for you to like have to go into every session saying, well, this is my free time. It has to be perfect free time because tomorrow's coming. And if I don't get enjoyment today or the maximum level of enjoyment, I'm not going to be able to push through tomorrow to the same degree. We all hit those points. You know, I think this is always teetering on the edge of the burnout conversation where if it's all about optimizing every single second, maybe it's time for a break. You have to have the natural fun. It's like going to a bookstore if you're like a huge book person and you load up on 20 books. Those are all time commitments. Every book that you invest in, if you know that you're going to pressure yourself to finish it, you have to be more limited. If that's your goal to get every ounce of just value out of what you're getting with this entertainment, then systems can help. And I think what Epos said is great. Just pick a few, play through them. If you enjoy them, great. This year for me, I'm doing it differently. Last year, I played one game at a time. I was pretty strict. I finished a lot of games. It was really fun. It was very nice. But the downside of being strict with that, there were days I didn't want to play that friggin' game. And I should have just booted something else up and had a little variety. I'm going into 2024, way less pressure. I don't have to beat everything that I start. I'm not playing 10 games at once. But right now, maybe one night it's Horizon, one night it's Final Fantasy VII, yesterday was Astrobot. But it's not a list of 300 games because that's just too much choice. I don't know. Just, I think take it easy, take a break. That's probably one of the biggest ones. If you want to restore joy to a hobby that you've done for a long time, take 2 or 3 weeks off.
Yep.
Legitimately. Don't think about it. Don't watch it. Just take a step back. Come back. Could feel totally fresh. Or you could still need a longer break. It could be something that you love so much. Breaks are good. Trying new stuff is also good. And if you are feeling that backlog dread, I would totally hold off on buying new stuff. I think you got to take stock of what you have, right?
If you're worried about getting value out of the games you have, stop buying new ones in the first place. And then you'll find it a little bit easier. But ultimately, like you said about teetering on burnout, like the more stakes and pressure you put on what is supposed to be a casual, easy leisure hobby, the worse it's going to feel. It needs to just be, oh, I want to do this now. If you feel too much pressure to pick a game and like optimize for it, go read a book, go watch a TV show, go for a walk, go do something else. Because
go take pictures.
The pressure will just, if you're not into super like real photography, you could also just like open a photo mode in a game and play with that. Maybe that's a new way to experience a game you're already in. Like just do something different. And whether you like it or not, it'll recalibrate you a bit. Whereas if you put pressure on it, even if you're playing, like if you are that stressed about your burnout or your backlog or whatever, like even if you boot up one of the games you were enjoying, like Bloodborne or Shadow, you could end up not liking it. So you really got to put that space there to just breathe.
I try to find Source Filmmaker, but I have like 30 hours in Source Filmmaker. Super fun. That's a great point. You can go out and literally create your own machinimas at any time. You've got a PC. You can do so much. Yeah. But it all starts with recognizing, am I burning out? Am I putting too much pressure on myself? And just take it easy. I think it's a very relatable topic. So thank you for the question, the suggestion. I would encourage any of the viewers, if you guys have ideas of things that you want to hear from Epos and I discuss next time, we love it. Thanks for the support. Thanks as always for listening. Per usual, Epos, where can people find you online?
Lost Saves on YouTube, Epos Vox, pretty much everywhere else. Having fun. And yes, thank you all for your support on this. This is one of my favorite things to do lately. And I'm so glad that we're back. Even as great as the break was, I was so stoked that we're doing this again already. I'm like, yeah.
Me too. I love it. won't commit to a schedule because both Epos and I are busy, but I think I want to aim for twice a month if we can, right?
Yeah.
And see how that goes, because this is going to be a great year for games. And then just in general, it's really fun getting to talk about this with you. So as always, thank you for the support, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. All of the links for everything down below. Go subscribe to Lost Saves on YouTube and Epos' main channel. Appreciate you all and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.